So, Ananya, we welcome you to the session. Thank you for taking time out.
Good evening, sir, and thank you for that very warm welcome.
Ananya, unlike many students who opt for IAS, as you know very rightly, you decided to opt for IFS. Tell us the honest reason, and because this may motivate many other students to join IFS later on, because many of us do not really know about foreign service as much as we know about IAS. So, enlighten those who want to join IFS later. What is so special about IFS?
Sir, that's a question I've been asked very often in the past month. So I would say, as my name stands for unique, my choice is also unique in that sense. And why particularly the foreign services? Because I feel it gives you an unparalleled experience and exposure, be it in terms of the domains you serve, the various fora you represent your country in. And secondly, since my school days, I have been part of MUNs, round fair conferences, and student exchanges. So I like immersing in different cultures. I have been an avid debater. So I feel all these things, they incline me more towards the IFS or the IAS. And at the end of the day, it's a personal choice that a person has to make.
So, coming to the elephant in the room, which is sociology, you scored 301 marks. Okay, which is, I think, this year's second highest. Okay, right after 309. And all of us aspire to get 300 marks, but not all of us are able to achieve it. And I'm sure you must not also have anticipated that you would be getting 300 plus marks. But students would be definitely interested to know as to what do you think exactly may have worked for you to get you this marks. If you could sum it up, and then I'll ask you specific questions.
Right, sir. Um, so I think, first of all, this year's paper, it worked in my favor, the question styles. A lot of people, they thought the paper was very unconventional compared to the previous years, but this was one factor that worked in my favor. Secondly, my strategy was very simple. So since I did not have many opinions on how I should write answer, on what material to look for, I think that simplification process, it really helped me. And you can see that in my answers also. And I truly embodied your saying of writing like a first attempter. And since this was my first mains, I did not carry any baggage from the previous attempts. So I think these factors played a very important role. And also, your crash course, it plugged any of the gaps that I had in my understanding or any portion that might have been left out by me. So I think these would be the four things which really played an important role.
Great. Okay, Ananya, so let me ask a very basic question, uh, starting with the paper one, sociology. Okay. Like right after the paper one, uh, many students came out of the center and they said many questions were based on previous year questions. Many questions were repeated. Okay. And this definitely gives us excitement, confidence that we will be scoring good because questions are repeated. Now, questions are repeated, but you know, the performance or the marks may not get repeated, right? What exactly creates the difference, do you think, eventually, despite solving that question beforehand, 1 or 2 months prior to the examination, and despite solving it multiple times and doing answer writing practice, what do you think may not have worked in favor of them and worked in favor of you?
So I think one word can explain it. It's over familiarity. So if you have practiced a question multiple times, even if you find the phrasing of a question to be similar to the question you practiced, you have the tendency to write down the exact answer you wrote for that question. So
Okay.
here is the debate of notes versus demand of the question, as you say it. So basically, you need to have conceptual understanding of what is being asked. Secondly, you need to supplement it with answer writing skills. So if you just have one of these two things, you will not answer the demand of the question. You will just write what you know about it. But the question is asking something else. So I think I applied both of these aspects together, and that is what made the difference in my case. And not getting overexcited by seeing a familiar question. That is also very important.
Exactly. This is very important to not get overexcited when you see a question that looks very familiar to what you may have practiced few days prior to the examination. But that does happen. Many students get overexcited and they lose the tone or the demand of the question, and they realize it after 2 or 3 months, maybe, or sometimes while returning back to home uh, from the main center. But anyway, um, now the question is, Ananya, when it comes to paper two, prima facie, many students this year said this was very unconventional paper, very dynamic. Okay, um, how? What was your reaction when you saw paper two,
So
and
I
how did you
actually
manage?
like. So I actually thought my paper two went better than paper one after I came out of the examination because first of all I had done many practice tests for GS and for sociology in your test series. So I had the mindset that I should not be accustomed to a particular kind of paper because once you start forming expectations that this is the sort of paper that will come, if the paper is not in that pattern, you get disappointed, which happened this year with many people, I feel. So, secondly, firstly, I was ready for any type of dynamic questions. And secondly, I just tried to use the best of the knowledge I had from both the papers. So, both these things helped me. And as for answering the questions, this time a lot of people, even I felt that questions were similar to GS style. So, how do you make them different? How do you make them sociological? So, for that, we have these concepts, key terms, we use examples wherever possible and not forced. You can add some case studies of a thinker. That is how you make your answer sociological. But there's no
Okay,
artificial separation. You need to combine both what you study in sociology as well as in GS.
okay, okay. So let us understand how do we approach any question, be it paper one or two, through some example. If you have any question in your mind, and if you could demonstrate.
Yes, sir. So I'll take a question from paper one. So this year we were asked about Marx's historical materialism and its relevance. So first of all, this is a repeat of the 2023 question. So here is the role of PYQs. And secondly, through this, I also want to show how I made notes. I used a framework which made it easier to retain content and also have consolidated notes. Because, especially in paper one, I feel we have plenty of material that people at the end of the day forget that even if you read 10,000 words for one topic, you need to only write the essence in 250 words. So, sir, like we have this topic of historical materialism. That's a key topic. So if I have to make my notes, they'll be in 4 5 broad categories. First will be the what portion. So this would include the definition.
Okay,
Second would be the causes of factors. So, for example, if you're studying Marx, you need to have an understanding of the debate between Hegel and Marx over idealism versus materialism.
okay,
Otherwise, you won't understand the concept. Then, third, it would be the contemporary relevance. So, I'll just have 3 4 points where I can interlink it. So, for example, see the contemporary relevance, we have the digital economy now, data economy. So data has become a new means of production, and the
mm,
owners of those data, they are the new owners of means of production. So we can call them the data bourgeoisie. And you
great,
have the data proletariats now, who are workers who are working for those who own the means of production. So this is how I am trying to create interlinkages.
great.
Now, I add another layer to it. What I do is I see if I can fit any other sociological concept I learned in this. So, for example, we have our dependency and development theory. So, here again, sir, like we study global supply chains, Rostow's model of development, the core periphery thing. So,
Yes,
MNCs, they are outsourcing low skill, low wage jobs to developing countries. So, this becomes the periphery. And then the IPR, the high value content, it remains with them. So,
right,
here I'm again showing the contemporary relevance, and at the same time, I've interlinked it with another concept of sociology.
great. So basically, you did not just limit to class structure, you also talked about two different um, nation states divided into core and periphery, where one is processing the data and exporting the finished product, and the second is just sending the data or is used to mine the data.
Yes.
So uh, basically you talked about two layers that can be used to explain inequality at the level of class and also at the level of nation state. So this is definitely going to show to the examiner that how you link the basic historical theory to the ongoing contemporary times. And how do you decide that I need to write these many points for contemporary relevance? When do you stop?
So, since if it is naturally stated in the question, I would say you
Mhm.
need to have at least 2 points. If you can go for three, go for three. But
Right.
minimum, I would say two, and you have to explain it well. And
Right.
if it is not stated, then you can use it in the form of a conclusion.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that also shows the interlinkage to the examiner that this person not just understands the concept, but also has the ability to link it to other sociological theories.
Right. Right. So, Ananya, you said that you don't need to just write 2 3 points, but you also need to explain them well. And
Yes, sir.
this is very important point, and that is very much visible when we see your answer copies. See, what is happening, Ananya, is that um, many students can understand that this is the contemporary relevance, but when it comes to writing this, despite knowing this, when it comes to writing this, what some of them may do is they would write contemporary relevance, two classes in contemporary times, uh, data capitalist, data proletariat, with two arrows. Okay. Now they will not explain it further. Now they will write second point. Okay. Uh, core nation states and periphery nation states. Core nation states well advanced in IT. Periphery nation states used for labor supply. Okay, not explaining further exactly how historical materialism is played out here. Okay, leaving up to the examiner to understand now. Okay, this gap sometimes they are not able to realize until somebody handholds them and tells them that you need to complete the sentence. And in your case, your explanations were so much to the point. Okay, examiner would not require any third or fourth point. After reading the first two itself, he would be very, very convinced that she knows, and I know that she knows. I don't need to know any further. Okay. So, this conviction, how did you develop that? Okay, I don't need to run after multiple points. Explaining few points would suffice.
So my motto for sociology was simplicity is the key, and my job is to make understanding the concepts simple for myself, and the answers I write simple to evaluate for the examiner. And your answer writing approach, I followed that as you taught in the crash course because I did not write any FLTs of sociology before this. So this was my only experience with tests in sociology. So here, I understood that the pattern of writing is very different in GS and sociology, optional. Because in GS, you will focus on the number of points and you will just name drop examples without explaining them. Because you assume that the examiner will understand himself or herself. But in sociologies, being a different nature of subject, which has a humanities orientation, I think professors also generally like to see answers which are well explained, well written, and not just you have to summarize things, but they should be understandable also. You cannot just write one or two words. If you just draw a simple diagram, as you just was telling right now, so you are leaving the understanding to the examiner himself. You are making their job tough, but it is your job to make your answers so legible, have clarity in terms of spacing and the entire layout that the examiner himself feels that this is a good copy.
Right, right. So, guys, um, let us underline this point that the problem is not with the dropping multiple points or making diagrams. The problem is to follow this in the paper of sociology. I mean, this approach per se is not wrong as long as you limit this approach to GS, but you can't emulate the same approach in sociology. There you have to actually follow a different approach altogether, which is to explain. And explaining does not mean that you end up writing paragraphs. Explaining simply means the point that you would have written in GS, you need to substantiate it, complete the sentence, and not just end up with flowcharts or arrows. Okay, examiner there is having very different approach. The way you follow or write an essay, so you have to just write a mini essay, not to confuse this with paragraph. Okay. Anyway, so Ananya, will take some questions also from students. Um, First question, which is given by a student, is how to use topper's copy, what to take and what not to take from it. Now, there are many toppers, as you know. Okay, not just 1 year, multiple years toppers. When you were using topper's copy, how did you decide that I will follow this style? Because there are toppers having different styles. How did you zero in on specific toppers, and what did you take from them and what not?
So for toposcopy, I use them more extensively for GS, but not that much for sociology because once I had written a few tests, I saw I was scoring good and my methodology was working. So I felt I did not need to look here and there because I had developed my conviction. And first, yes, sir. And first of all, why do we look for a topper's copy? Because it is the closest representation we have to what a person who is scoring good is writing. So the purpose is not to replicate exactly whatever they are writing, but to understand what we can take from it. So, for example, if you see there is some data point or some unique example, maybe a sociological concept you are not aware of, because we also study limited materials. You can take it from there, but it also becomes your duty to then search it further and not use it blindly. This is the first thing. And secondly, just see how well it integrates with your style. There is one
Hmm,
more exercise I can suggest people to do. Just take one question from the topper's copy. Don't look at the answer what the person has written, but first write
hmm,
your own answer or just have a rough skeleton that these are the points I would like to write. And
hmm,
see how the topper has written.
hmm.
If you feel that there is similarity, you can say that you are going in the right direction.
Okay.
If you feel that there are some divergences, you might want to see if there are some gaps in your understanding. So I think this is
Hmm.
one way we can use them.
Great. And definitely, I would say this will actually gamify the whole process. You took a question from topper's copy without looking at their answer. You started your writing your own answer, and then you saw how it was different from yours. And when you see how it was different from yours, don't just look at the words, also look at the sentence, because sentence actually play a bigger role in connecting the words and uh, making an impression onto the examiner as to your following the demand right. And following up on the same question, Ananya, how would we evaluate our own answer without a mentor? Like you said, you can write your own answer looking at topper's question. Then how do we evaluate it?
So there are two things in this. First of all, as I just explained earlier, if you see that you're in the right direction, you will understand.
Yeah.
And secondly, for any question, there are some based on the keywords and whatever the directive in the question is. Let's take the example of historical materialism again. So there are core features. Those core features remain same across copies because those 4.45 points won't change. So you have some basic terms or some basic concepts that would come in an answer. If you can replicate that, that's well and good. But whenever you feel that you are in the wrong direction or you feel that you are deviating from the question, I would suggest you seek the help of a mentor who will guide you rightly.
Okay. So basically, mentor must be there, because without mentor, we can't understand or assess where do we stand in the competition. Ananya, what do you have to say role of AI or Chat GPT? Uh, can it be a mentor?
So I think you can use it selectively. I would not rely on it completely because I feel that human touch in education is very important. And the beauty of being taught by a teacher is that they can simplify the content according to the level of the audience. So, for
Hmm.
example, if you see that your class is not understanding a difficult concept, you will try to modify it in different ways so that the children actually understand it. But
Hmm.
with AI, it is very difficult to customize it. And then, secondly, it's also about the correction part. If you see that your student is understanding in the wrong direction, you will stop them right then and there. And you will say that this is what you're supposed to do. You are misinterpreting what I'm saying. But in the case of AI, it becomes difficult. So I did use AI in the sense, for example, if I had to take some case study on urbanization or maybe, some other topic in the syllabus, I did use it selectively, but I did not completely rely on it. So I would say it's a combination of both.
Okay, great. And what I have also seen many a times that AI doesn't want to offend us. It will never say no to what we ask them, and it will always say yes, yes, you are right. And then we would ask them another question, but how it is right? If that is the case, then they would say, yeah, that is also right. I mean, it will always say yes, yes to what we ask them. This is the problem with AI. It doesn't want to offend us. This is the issue. And a mentor is not bothered about you feeling offended or not, because his job is to fix you if you are going wrong, which is very important. जितना जल्दी आप वो ठीक कर लो उतना अच्छा. Okay, fine. How do we consolidate study material?
So, sir, here, as I just told you, my framework of how I prepared notes. I
Hmm.
think if we have a framework for preparing notes, because you see there is high repetition in the questions. So they'll ask you what is the concept, what are its core features, what is its contemporary relevance, what are say the similarities or differences in two close related concepts. For example, it's very expected question to ask the difference and similarities in anomia and alienation between Marx and Weber. So
Okay.
if you develop frameworks like this while going through the questions itself, you will see that these are 4, 5 headings for each topic that I need to prepare.
Hmm.
And then you should trust your sources, trust your base notes, and whatever examples you keep on adding, and limit it to that because content is being created every second, but you cannot replicate it all in the exam. You have trust in yourself also.
Okay. So coming to this question of base notes, Ananya, um, I came to know that after writing mains, you had joined foundation course of ours. After
Yes,
writing
sir.
mains. So, but what was the reason?
So, firstly, this is a very uncertain exam, and I had planned that if attempt does not go well, I might appear for one more time. And since I had joined the crash course, I really liked your pedagogy, your teaching style. So I thought maybe if I join this course, I can learn something more, something new, something interesting. So that was the reason I thought of joining the course. That too after writing a mains.
Yeah, exactly. So, what was your base notes earlier?
So I was so I did self studies. I did not join any foundation course prior to this. It
Okay.
was basically the IGNU material we find online, and I followed the PYQ method. So based on whatever was missing in those notes and what was asked in the PYQ, I did a little self research, and then I enrolled in your crash course. So whatever gaps I had from that, they were plugged in
Okay.
mostly. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Ananya, here I would like to ask you another question. You had some notes prior to joining Crash Course, which was IGNU and your own PYQ based notes. Now, when you started watching lectures of Crash Course, so this is a question on behalf of some students um, who actually struggle with this very basic idea. How do you integrate what you see in the Crash Course with what you already have with you? Is it not time taking, or do we really integrate or not? What to take, what not to? How do we decide in these 3 months?
Sir, first of all, crash course is revision for what you've studied earlier. So you
Yeah.
would have, I would say, somebody who has good notes based on the PYQ template, they would have at least 60 to 70% material that is already being taught in the class. As for the value addition, whatever new case studies you give, for example, I remember when we were doing education, there was one particular Indian thinker who said that education system, or particularly schools in India, are also like caste system.
Yes. Disa Basani.
So yes, sir. So I added that to my notes.
Hmm.
Then I remember you told us that it's very likely that a question on 𝐂𝐴 will be asked this year. And you said this one statement of another Indian thinker that 𝐂𝐴's sociological imagination comprises of these two, three things. So this is the value addition I am looking for, and this is what I verbatim wrote, whatever you said in my notes. I will not change I will not change the notes I wrote about the case study on Coorg because the concepts are similar. But whatever new information you're giving me, that is what I'll add on to my notes.
Okay. Great. Okay. Now let us come to the time management aspect between optional and GS post prelims. How do we distribute the time after prelims?
So in my case, I usually did it. So the mornings are dedicated to GS. So let's say from 7 a.m. till 2 p.m. And then from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. it was sociology. This was largely the division I followed. And this worked well in my case.
Okay. So 7 to 2 you did GS and 3 to 9 social.
Yes, sir.
Were you following this on regular basis, or it was okay to skip few days in case you could not follow it every day?
So I tried to follow this at least 5 days a week. I kept
Mhm.
one day as buffer because sometimes you feel that you are missing out on this particular section of the syllabus. You need some more time. So I would
Oh,
just squeeze time from one particular subject. If I feel that sociology needs more time this day, I will give it that extra time and I will compensate it for GS in the coming days. So I kept a buffer also so that both the subjects are being covered simultaneously.
okay, great. Now, very crucial question, often asked repeatedly by students: current affairs for sociology. How important do you think, and be very honest, how important do you think current affairs are for sociology exclusively? Do you need to prepare exclusive special current affair for social? And what was your approach?
So the answer to the first question is it would largely be no. You do not need to prepare exclusively for sociology based current affairs because whatever current aspect people think are being asked, they are picked up from static topics. So, for example, so you had a lecture on contemporary issues, if I recall. So you largely covered everything that was required, be it since there were talks of census. So it was likely that caste census can be asked. So that becomes a part of what we already study in paper two as
Yes.
caste and how it was used as a method of data collection, etc. So
Hmm.
it was not anything new.
Hmm.
If you want to add something else, so you can just take it from regular newspaper articles that we read, be it from any newspaper you follow. I did not particularly follow anything only for sociology based current affairs. But yes, for example, uh, if you find some case study that is in news or some interesting article, like uh, there are questions about how marriage is not a religious sacrament anymore, but it has turned into a commercial event. So maybe you can take up the figure that the marriage industry is boomed to XYZ crore rupees or something
Yes.
like that. So this is how you integrate the static into the current.
So basically, we don't need to delve into the details of current affairs, and we can just glance through PYQs and understand how much of the current affair is important for static part. But we should not overdo it, like Ananya said, when it comes to commercialization aspect of marriage. Knowing this basic idea that Marriage is becoming another industry now. Wedding industry is booming industry of worth $1 billion and creating new jobs. Um, is sufficient without knowing data exact per se. But writing this much is enough and is equally qualified to be called as current affair on marriage. Okay, writing this as a industry, booming industry. Okay,
Yes, it just needs to be a cherry on the top. The
cherry.
static portion will be your cake. Without the cake, there's no use of the cherry.
Exactly. When it comes to conclusion and introduction, there are some students who try to prepare these things beforehand. What was your approach?
Sir, I was not one of that student. I did not have a list of ready-made conclusions and introductions that I would write. Firstly, because I think it creates a compulsion on you that when you see that question, even if it is remotely linked to what you have already prepared, you have the tendency to write it. And then you might be deviated from what is actually being asked. That is one reason. And secondly, in my answer writing method, I picked up this technique wherein I would look for the keywords in the question and I would start by defining them. This was the second reason. And thirdly, as you said, if there's some value addition I picked up from the class, for example, this time the question directly asked about 𝐂𝐨𝐬𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜's theoretical approach.
Yes.
So I know that that statement, what you said about sociological imagination of 𝐂𝐨𝐬𝐧𝐽, that would fit perfectly here. So I would write it as it is, but I would not force something that I had already memorized just for the sake
Hmm.
of it.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
And in
Very,
the
yeah.
yes, sir. And in the conclusion,
Hmm.
so in the conclusion, I would basically just summarize my argument, or maybe suppose if they're talking about just one side of things. For example, if they're talking about a positivist school of sociology. So maybe in the conclusion, I would also like to add that later scholars such as Max Weber or the interpretivist school, it further enriched this discipline by bringing about XYZ. So this is how I would conclude. I would show them the other side, but I would not force any conclusion or introduction that I had already learned.
Ananya, I really loved your honesty. You said right at the onset that I did not prepare intro and conclusion beforehand because this would have forced me to write the same without bothering about the demand, because it happens when you once you prepare something, you get so much attached to it. The moment you see some keyword related to it, you end up writing the same, and that actually does not go very well with the examiner, because he somehow sometimes feel disillusioned, as in you may not have given enough attention to the demand, because the flow automatically gets disrupted once you dumb down the prepared or uh, you know um the intro or conclusion which were prepared right away. So, but how do you develop this courage to write intro and conclusion that day itself, or does it require any courage? What is your take?
So it requires both courage and confidence, and that
Mhm.
only comes from practice. You have to
Mhm.
write a lot of answers. And this does not only apply to your optional subject. Once you start writing answers for your GS also, you will see that there is some level of comfort you attain after some point of time. So you would not, have to have ready-made conclusions or answers. If you have a piece of data, some concept that you think can be applicable, some case study, you can easily weave an introduction with it. You do not need ready-made words. So I think it comes with practice. I wrote a lot of tests and that brought both the courage as well as the confidence to not go with any prepared introductions and conclusions in the exam.
Great, great, Ananya. And this was actually very important for us to understand, because this is where um, students struggle. What is happening is that students prepare a ready-made intro and conclusion, but they don't bother enough about the body, as if sometimes what they do is that intro is something else, conclusion is something else, which is already prepared in their mind, and the body is something else altogether, not fitting in very well with the intro and conclusion. So, okay, now coming to the next question. How not to deviate from the demand of the question without over explaining.
So this was a difficulty I faced, particularly in GS, not so much in sociology.
Mhm.
So what I used to do, I used to prepare a rough skeleton that these are the broad subheadings I would have my answer in. So firstly, you try to break down the question as much as possible. Sometimes you will have two, three subparts to a question, so you automatically get two to three subheadings. But sometimes if the question is just open-ended, it's a statement and it says explain. So then it is your duty to break down that question as much as you can. For example, we have some opinion-based questions that up to what extent do you think? There is a statement like this. So first you will explain that concept, then you can explain the convergences that this is why this is happening. Then you will also show the other side that this is not applicable. So I think just learning the technique to break down the question and having
Mm.
a mental skeleton in place that this is the space I would keep for introduction, this much for body, this much for conclusion, and if a critique required, that was what helped me not to deviate from the demand and without over explaining it.
Great. And any particular revision method that you followed apart from memorization and rote learning?
So,
This is
sir,
also one question. Yeah.
yes, so I've seen a lot of people, they make very short notes after writing long notes in the beginning. But I did not write many short notes because I felt that it's very time consuming and instead I relied on another method. So I used to create voice notes in the WhatsApp. I created uh, one channel of my own and then I just used to post voice notes of any concept or any question. So for example, if I have to study religion, so I'll say there's this functional theory of religion, then the critical theory, feminist theory. So I'll just make voice note with keywords. And then because we are studying at the desk, so it becomes your body becomes very stiff. So when I'm taking breaks, I would just pace around my room, listen to those voice notes, and that became a method of recalling. Because I think what we hear, it sticks in our mind. So I think
Yes.
this is one new method I followed.
वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट इनफैक्ट अनन्या, शायद आपको भी रियलाइज नहीं होगा कि आपने कितना इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट बोल दिया है कि क्या होता है जो पेडागोजी जो होती है लर्निंग की उसमें एक तो होता है कि यू रीड व्हाट यू कैन सी ऑन द पेपर और व्हाट यू सी ऑन द वेब पेज, ओके, एंड दूसरा होता है यू हेयर व्हाट इज बीइंग टॉट. Now, out of the two, as you said, you followed. I'm not saying that you prioritized that over the previous one, but you said that you were more comfortable with the voice memos, which you recorded because you believe that hearing one out uh, brings clarity or more depth or more connection than reading something on the page. Now, what happens is that this aspect sometimes um is not given enough attention by students when they are reading a textbook. Okay, so they are not able to understand exactly how hearing something can create a difference. The same thing which is being read by them, if somebody uh, reads them out, can create a difference. And this very basic important element can create sometimes huge difference. And when you initially followed the IGNU text, okay, like when you followed some concepts for any IGNU text, when you followed any reading for a basic conceptual learning, and when you try to understand the same through the crash course lecture, did you find any difference, or exactly what kind of difference on the same concept?
So definitely if a person is teaching you, if a well qualified person who has a good teaching methodology like yourself is teaching you, you understand it better. And so I did one more thing. So basically, if I'm learning anything and if I want to just test myself, I will just maybe record a voice memo explaining the concept to myself in very simple words. If I can very fluently speak, that means I'm able to understand it properly. if I am stammering in between, that means there
Hmm.
is still some gap that needs to be filled. So this is
Right,
also one way wherein people can evaluate their own understanding.
right. And yeah, we call it Feynman method. If you are not able to explain it to yourself, or let's assume that there is a character student studying in class 5, you are not able to explain it the same concept to him, that means you are struggling with the concept. So you need to get those gap plugged in
Exactly.
first, and that will help you become a better person in terms of
Yes.
understanding. Okay. um so Ananya, now that we have taken some of the questions which were posted by students, I'll see if there is any other new question given by a student which is not been which was not asked before. Let me just go through the same question list. Consolidation, I think Ananya has already answered. uh, okay, so this is a question, I think. Current affairs we've already taken up. How to identify the demand of the question. Okay. How to identify demand of the question. When you talked about notes versus demand, as we often emphasize in the class, how did you figure out? Okay, so this is what is the meaning of notes versus demand. What was that point?
So I think two things help. First
Hmm.
was first what I was doing on my own. That is breaking down the question into subparts so that I clearly understand what they are trying to ask. And secondly, we had these live answer writing sessions in the classroom itself. So there, wherein you are simulating the exam conditions, you have a timer going on, and you have to write the answer as you would in the actual exam. I think
Right.
that also really helped because right after the timer goes off, you would identify that has this person written it correctly or not, and you would write the correct answer itself, showing the demand. So I think once you do that practice over multiple times, I think it
Hmm.
becomes easier to understand what is actually being asked.
Hmm.
Like, I remember in the very first class when we were studying about intellectual forces, many people actually tend to miss out the counter enlightenment point. But that is one of the crux of the demand that is being asked. So
Right.
it is through a series of trials and errors that you understand what is actually being asked.
Hmm. That's great point. Right. In fact, once you continuously do the answer writing practice, you automatically tend to understand, okay, where you are getting deviated and what qualifies as demand and what is extra. Uh, Ajay had asked, I had done sociology foundation course, but a lot of time has passed since then. Now I am restarting my preparation. How should I approach sociology? Ajay, I would say, see, if you feel that a lot of time has passed since then, and if you're not feeling comfortable starting on your own, or if you feel that you may not maintain the same discipline which you must maintain in the course of preparation, you can join the upcoming foundation batch. Also, we are launching our foundation batch on 11th of May. Okay. And in case you don't intend to join the batch, what you can do is, whatever you have studied previously in the previous foundation batch, you can revise the same notes and try solving PYQs on your own. Okay. And if you feel that you're not hitting the demand, which you would come to know once you show the same to the mentor, then you may consider joining the crash course later on after the pre. But for the time being, I would say if you're attempting this year, go for the prelims first, um, and then we can, rethink and approach this question in some other manner, depending on where you stand in the preparation, right? Mohit, Yash Mohit. Yash, she has already answered this question? How did she go about studying sociology and resources she referred? Aditya, what did you stop doing in sociology preparation or in answer writing that improved you? What did you stop doing in sociology preparation which improved your marks? A very different way of asking uh, the question. What did you
Uh,
stop doing? Technically क्वेश्चन अच्छा है वैसे देखा जाए तो मतलब what did you not bother enough about?
I think question acha hai, but you're asking the wrong person because this was the only attempt I had at mains. Maybe a
हम्म,
person who has given mains multiple times and they've improved their marks, they would be the right audience for this question.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल आंसर भी
I
उतना ही अच्छा लगा मुझे आपका अनन्या कि
thank you, sir.
यस
So, I forgot to mention this one thing. So basically, in the crash course, I would also encourage people to use the test series very wisely because I have seen that there are some you cannot cover everything in the classes itself. But I use those tests also very diligently because you try to maximize the questions which you could not cover in the class in the test series. So also learning from those model answers, I also added that to my material.
ओके फाइन Ravi, if possible, please take these two questions. Would like to see snippet of ma'am's notes. What, why, how, current example framework one, which will help to build upon where can we get mentor from. Level up. Snippet of ma'am's notes. Um, Ananya, have you made any Telegram channel of yours?
No, sir, not as of yet.
Not as of yet. Okay. So I think if you plan to make one in near future, I think you would be uploading snippet of your notes, maybe or may not be. I don't know. But yeah, if you have to say something on this.
Uh, so actually, I was conflicted whether I should do this or not because I
Yes.
feel that notes of any person, they are the filtered understanding of the person. So my notes are particularly tailored for me. Even if
Great.
I share it, I feel a lot of people might not understand it and they might invest their time more wisely if they study on their own. So, if whenever in the future I plan to share my notes, I'll definitely notify you and people may access it.
डेफिनेटली गाइस इस चीज को आप बड़ा अच्छे से समझिए कि सबके अपने नोट्स होने चाहिए पहली बात तो ये एवरीबडी शुड हैव देयर ओन नोट्स ओके somebody else's notes cannot be your notes. It will still belong to that person only who made it in the first place. And why we should have our own notes despite availability of so many toppers notes already out there? Because until you write on your own, you will never develop the confidence and understanding. And then how would you get the marks which you are fighting for? You need to have that confidence first, which is more important than the understanding. तो वो अपने नोट्स खुद से लिखने से ही वो कॉन्फिडेंस आता है और आपकी लैंग्वेज है आप जिस हिसाब से शब्द लिखो आई एम श्योर अनन्या के नोट्स में सेंटेंस शायद पूरे ना भी हों सिर्फ कीवर्ड कीवर्ड ही हों उसको डी कोड सिर्फ अनन्या ही कर सकती है वो डी कोड आप नहीं कर सकते और आपके भी ऐसी होने चाहिए कि आप ही को समझ आए किसी और को नहीं सो अनन्या इज वेरी राइट इस जगह पे तो एंड दूसरी बात वेयर कैन वी गेट मेंटर फ्रॉम लेवल अप यस रवि क्रैश कोर्स हमारा प्री के बाद चलता है उसमें हम मेंटरशिप भी करते हैं स्पेशली फॉर द स्टूडेंट्स हु आर राइटिंग मेंस एंड इवन इफ दे आर नॉट राइटिंग मेंस आंसर राइटिंग के लिए तो मेंटरशिप हम करते ही हैं ओके हाउ मेनी थिंकर्स वी नीड टू कोट इन आंसर्स ओके ये क्वेश्चन तो आई वाज रियली थिंकिंग कि ये क्वेश्चन कैसे नहीं आया अभी तक इसका क्या जवाब है अनन्या वेंकट सुब्रमण्यम इज आस्किंग दिस क्वेश्चन
So, first of all, I would say that there might be many people who might know more sociology and more thinkers than me, and they might have curated a list also that I will quote this thinker. I did not follow that school of thought because I focused more on the content and what was actually being asked. If a concept is being asked, I will explain that concept first. If I think that the thinker is required to be quoted, I will quote them in a bracket. My main focus would not be on the thinker itself. They would just be a supporting argument. if I'm writing about reference group, maybe I'll write RK Merton in the bracket, but the focus does not become Merton itself. So I think thinkers you can sprinkle here and there when required because that builds credibility in your answer that you are stating what a person has said or a concept that they have explained, so that you are quoting a person of good knowledge, a scholar. But if you unnecessarily add thinkers at the cost of what is actually being asked, be it in terms of the points or the examples, I think then you are delivering a very poor answer. So I did not pressurize myself to quote a particular number of thinkers. There are questions where I have not even written a single thinker because it did not require it. I remember in paper two we had a question about NEP, the features and something like that. So here, how can you fit a thinker? So don't take that pressure with yourself. If it comes naturally, well and good. But if it does not, there's no need to add them forcefully.
Great. So, thinker is not the hero, argument is the hero, and
Absolutely.
thinker can be, simply seen as a supporting actor. Okay, supporting your argument. You are the person who is giving argument. Your argument is not your own. It is also developed after reading their ideas. But then their names should not be placed before the argument. Argument should be placed before their names. So that demand is at the center of the argument. What was your revision or recall strategy already discussed? How can we? This is already discussed, I think. How to make notes for paper two from scratch. Virendra is asking for paper two, how to make notes for paper two from scratch.
So for this again, to build a basic understanding, I read the IGNO material, whatever was relevant to the syllabus. Then secondly, in paper two, I also heavily relied on the crash course because I think in paper two we have few sources. So that also becomes a challenge for many people. And the beauty of paper two is that when you have a limited choice, your content already becomes better. So I think just the IGNU notes that I had coupled with your crash course and again the PYQs, if you find any typical question, that is all you could do.
Right. And also understand, guys, for paper two, you need to have good understanding. Especially for the section A, because that is going to give you introduction to the paper two. So do give emphasis on the understanding aspect of paper two, section A, starting with it. Uh, is adding thinkers and their theories or quotes alone make a paper to answer sociological? No, no, no. It's not like this. It's never like this. Writing name of a thinker or writing name of a theory or writing a quote is not going to make your answer sociological. Just like writing uh, atom or compound is not going to make your answer chemical. Okay. I mean, see, you have to understand that what is the demand of the question. Don't take pressure of sounding sociological or sounding psychological or philosophical or historian or political scientist. Take pressure of writing the demand of the question in the language which is comforting to you. 100 people appearing will have 100 different ways of writing the same question, which means 100 different languages. I mean, language is same, but the mode of expression is different. So don't take pressure of writing sociological. It is going to be very organically coming to you. Once you have gone through the lectures or notes or foundation or any study book, you would have enough uh, uh, what we call as bank of keywords with you, which is enough for you to um, give you this confidence that okay, I know sociology. Okay, but then knowing sociology alone is also not sufficient. You have to know how to approach the answer of the question, which is again a different ball game altogether. Okay, so don't confuse the two.
So I think I can explain this with an example, if you allow.
Yeah, yeah, please.
So, in paper two, we study about solidarity and vertical solidarity. These are
Yeah,
terms you would use only in sociology paper. If you try to use this in the society paper of GS1, it would not be rewarded well. So basically these are what make the answer more oriented to your subject.
Exactly. So there are some keywords that you would not be using in GS, but you would reserve it for socio paper only. Like she talked about vertical horizontal solidarity, or historical materialism is something that you would not write in GS. Okay. So, and you know this automatically by the time you finish GS and optional, this much of idea you would have with you. But then these alone are not going to play a role until you weave them into a flow according to the demand of the question. How did you use model answer of sociology crash course? Priyanka is asking.
Okay, so Priyanka, for the model answers, basically you will see what point you have missed in your answer. If there is any, pick that up. There would be different examples and case studies that you can directly quote from the model answer, so pick that up. And I also coupled it with sir's the test explanation videos that he did, because the model answers were sometimes different, and what sir was trying to explain in a very simplified way, that was different. So based on whatever you understand and whatever you like in your writing style, you can pick that up. And lastly, for the model answers, also try to see different types of questions which actually might not be common to you. For example, there would be some unique questions purposely asked so that you cover that topic. So try to pick up on those things.
Definitely. Okay, so we'll take last question, guys. Okay, and then we'll wrap up the session. Manoj is asking, can I rely solely on level up class notes, not referring to reference books? Okay, Manoj. So see, what we can tell you is that for the topics that we cover in the class, which is approximately 95% topics that we cover in the class, in the foundation course, you can solely rely on those class notes. And the reason is very simple, that when we cover a topic, immediately afterwards, we pick PYQs and we solve them in the class. We don't just solve them, we make you solve them. Okay. In the process, our objective is to help you develop answer writing and develop confidence with the same answer writing. And once you have gone through PYQs after completing the topics, then what is the need to refer? A book. The only need then is to revise the same and develop confidence, so much so that you can write in your own language and you're not dependent all the time on your notes to develop that language. This is the only thing that you have to practice for afterwards. Okay. So for the 95% topics that we cover, we don't claim that we cover each and everything that cannot be covered. Okay. In the given time duration of 5 to 5.5 months. But every topic that we cover, 95%, you don't need to cover anything else for the same. No need to read any book for the same. Okay. Okay. So Ananya, with this we will uh, complete this session, conclude the session, and I'm sure that many students may have taken inspiration from you to know more about Indian Foreign Service, and to also uh, feel confident to take sociology as an optional, even if they are from economics background. Because sometimes students feel that our background uh, may not enable us to learn this subject from the scratch. The truth is that any subject that we study here, including ethics or art and culture, we never had any background for the same. But we tend to develop ideas and confidence around these things over a period of time. And I'm sure you are going to be a role model for many students who um, understand that writing like a beginner, or like writing in a very simple language with full explanation, can get you such good marks in optional subject. and I wish you all the very best for the future endeavors. एंड आई एम श्योर आप जहाँ पे भी जाओगे आप फोड़ोगे. ठीक है.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for having me, and thank you for everyone for attending. I hope you find this useful in some semblance, and all the best to all of you for your future endeavors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ananya, for joining us. Thank you, guys.